And at this future time, he's giving a picture of what's going to happen. So he's not talking about contemporaneously. He's not talking about a time in the past, but a time in the future when there are a lot of dead people. That's the euphemism, sleep in the dust, means dead. Many of those who are dead, they will awake, and there will be some who will awake to everlasting life and others to disgrace and everlasting contempt.
And how do you know that sleep in the dust means dead?
That is a pretty common euphemism that's even carried through into the Greek New Testament, the idea of sleeping. It's a pretty common biblical euphemism for dying.
Right, but in the Hebrew, what is it saying?
I can't tell you. If you really, I mean, I think you would have a hard time saying that means anything else, but you could check that out.
Well, I mean, sleep in the dust could mean a lot of things, but I'm asking you, it's a euphemism. Where do you get the idea that it's a common euphemism?
Let's just say I totally made it up, but you feel free to go ahead and check a bunch of commentaries and stuff, and you can.
Well, I don't know. You're the pastor, so I assume that if you're quoting from a chapter and a verse, that you understand that if you're going to claim something's a euphemism, you have some reasoning for why you believe that, right?
I already gave you reasoning, and then you denied it and said it could mean a lot of things.
Right. No. I asked you for your underlying
and I
reasoning,
gave you it. And I gave it to you.
You just said because it's a common euphemism.
It's a biblical euphemism that even carries into the New Testament that sleeping means dying. If you want to try to raise a point from the biblical text that it means something else, feel free, but I don't think you have anything. I think you just want to question it and just make a point of order for no reason. Feel free. Hey, find something.
And no. What I'm saying is, you're saying
I'm not going to be able to give you what you want. I'm not going to, Travis.
Right.
I'm not going to be able to give you a Hebrew language explanation for it. I can't do it. But if you can find something afterwards, just send it to me, and I'll change my view.
I'm just saying that you're saying that.
I know that's what you're saying.
Written in Hebrew.
I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying.
Other
Travis.
texts written in Greek. And those texts have a commonality with respect to the euphemisms they use, even though they're written hundreds of years apart in different languages. But you're saying that that's a common biblical euphemism because, again, you view the Bible as a text.
Nope. Stop.
I don't.
What did Jesus say when Lazarus died in John 11?
I don't remember. What did he say?
He said he's sleeping. And was Jesus Jewish? And was he fluent in the Hebrew scriptures?
I don't know if Jesus was fluent in the Hebrew scriptures or not.
Okay, but was Jesus familiar with the Old Testament?
I assume that he was.
And was Jesus talking about a dead person being asleep? And was Jesus from a Jewish culture?
Right, but he would have been speaking Aramaic.
But I'm saying no. But okay, set that aside. Set it aside.
Right,
was he familiar with Jewish culture? Was he familiar with Jewish culture and Jewish euphemisms?
And the text is written in Greek. And you're assuming that he said that.
Bro, dude, if you're going to make a point like this, it's not going to be worth talking to you. I'm not going to keep wasting my time. You're not interested in actually having a conversation.
Well, I am, but
No, you're not. No, you are not.
Right, but you're wanting me to assume a lot of things that you assume that I don't. And I'm asking you to explain them. And if your explanation is simply, I believe a Hebrew manuscript has similar euphemisms to a Greek manuscript written hundreds of years apart.
I didn't talk about, okay.
And I absolutely believe that everything written down in this text is actually what a person said who would have spoken those words decades before they were written down. That's what you believe. That's fine. You can believe that. I don't. But
was this portion of Daniel written in Hebrew or Aramaic? Do you know?
I assume Hebrew because they're the Hebrew scriptures.
Yeah, well, actually, a great portion of Daniel is written in Aramaic, the only Old Testament book, I think, the only Old Testament book that features Aramaic. So if that was the case, you just said Jesus was speaking Aramaic, would that then help you?
No.
Okay, so that's not really your point. What's your point?
That doesn't resolve the fact that the Greek New Testament's written in Greek.
Oh, that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. The English New Testament's written in English, but the Greek word and the English word both are talking about sleep. And however Jesus said it, whatever language he said it, that's just the translation. That's not the culture. That's not the nation. That's not the cultural euphemism being injected back into the scripture. It's what Jesus said. It's an accurate record of what Jesus said.
Wait a minute. So A first century Jew who speaks Aramaic has his words recorded decades later in another language than he speaks, and you're assuming that those words are both correct and that they reflect an ancient Jewish euphemism, even though the texts are authored in Greek.
So you've got Jesus talking about his friend Lazarus.
I have got somebody writing things down that they are alleging Jesus said.
Well, correct. But what I'm saying is, in the text, as we read it, so you can doubt the accuracy all you want. But all I'm saying is, in the text, as we read it, you have Jesus saying Lazarus is asleep. Jesus is saying that Lazarus is dead, but he's using a euphemism. He is speaking as a Jew in Jewish culture to his fellow men. Therefore, that is evidence that this was a euphemism used among Jews that someone is dead. I feel like we've just wasted a whole bunch of time because I got 5 minutes, so I got to go.
No, this is incredibly productive.
For who?
For me.
Well, that's kind of selfish because I'm wasting a lot of time. So let me finish my thought on Daniel 12.
So let's look at John 11 about that. So
our friend Lazarus sleepeth, but I go that I may wake him out of sleep.
Lord, if he sleep, he shall do well.
Lazarus is dead.
In verse 14, it says, so then he told them plainly, Lazarus is dead. Because before that, in verse 12, it says his disciples replied, Lord, if he sleeps, he will get better. So the apostles, after he said Lazarus is asleep, understood that Lazarus was actually asleep. And in verse 14, he had to clearly say, no, he's dead. So they didn't understand his euphemism to mean that he was asleep because they thought he was literally asleep. And Jesus had to plainly say, no, he's dead. So what's the common euphemism again that I'm supposed to understand? And that's what I'm getting at. You're assuming something in a text and you're using, well, it's a common biblical euphemism. Well, if it's so common, then why did you
just quote me with that voice?
Well,
I don't appreciate the lack of charity there.
But
all right. Hey, you guys have a good night.